Hello everyone. So we'll talk about the Android UI testing and the best practices and the challenges we'll encounter during testing. So I'm Merab Kutalia, Android GD, and you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and also you can write me an email if you have some good and nice ideas about the UI testing and how it can be much easier. So this talk is mostly intended for the audience who are interested in the and taking the first steps into the UI testing and much more like a introductory to the Espresso testing. But I believe it will be interesting also for test automation engineers and for the other engineers who have never tried UI testing. So let's go. Um, what we have nowadays in terms of UI testing and what are the tools available for the Android. So first one is UI Automator, which we will not talk about during this talk today, but in shorter manner. So UI Automator helps us to manipulate on our UIs. Also, it can be used for testing cross application features like sharing some kind of data from the first application to another application, and we want to see how it works and to test the actual behavior. Also, UI Automator is being used by Appium testing framework is one of the options. So it is separate huge topic that we will not talk about, but Espresso is what we are interested in. So Espresso has a very long journey in the Android community and in the Android world. So it's been with us since 2016, I believe, but it had quite a long run right now. And I want to talk about these three major components Espresso has, the internals and how it works, and then how we can use it on our laptop, on our CI machine, and how we can push our test to the UI, so how to say, device labs on like Firebase, Azure DevOps, and so on. So let's talk about the Espresso. The most interesting stuff and most interesting about the Espresso is that it's very fast and stable compared to other UI testing frameworks, and it runs on our device and emulator plus with the application. So to go into the details. All UI applications, UI testing applications and instrumental application tests need some kind of device or the emulator because unlike the local unit test, JUnit test, they can't run on the local JVM. So they actually need the Android environment. So that's why we write those tests in the Android test directory and not the test directory. So Android test is the directory that we need, and I will show it in the demo. So those tests run on device and emulator. So because of this, we can get various tests on the device, check how our UI and layout looks on those devices in terms of rotating, also with different form factors. But it also means that we can get flaky tests. What flaky tests mean? It is the situation when we sometimes pass the test, actual test passes, and sometimes it's not. But we can't, so we can get a very specific reason why it's not. So this is a flakiness, test flakiness, and UI tests are mostly are very flaky, and they're infamous because of this. But still, Espresso is very stable in terms of the flakiness, and it's very fast compared, like for example, the Appium. It's maybe 2-3 times faster in terms of the performance. So actually, running test performance, unlike the Appium. So why we have so much speed? Because our Espresso runs on the application, runs with the application on this device. Unlike the Appium, which uses maybe UI Automator or some kind of other engine, which is like it's not with the application, but it's a sandbox for the application, and because of this, they are slower. So one of the greatest feature for Espresso is the test recorder feature. So test recording, I'll try to make the demo of test recorder, but we are very short on time. So and test recorder is basically feature that you'll just try to you just push the button to record the test. You do all the actions on your application, navigating from screen to screen, and maybe show the keyboard to type something, and then you have the options to just compares what you want. For example, if you have some kind of text input, you can check, okay, I got this text, and it should be equal to this, and it will generate Java or Kotlin code for your test. And it is very handy. I believe that when you have 400, 500, thousands of tests, it is not scalable enough solution, and it is in your best interest to write the and to have some kind of micro framework for your test to set up the testing environment and so on. But still, for some part of the test recording is a great feature that you can go through to very specific features. Also, tooling. This test recording is part of the tooling, but still, we have the Android Studio, the very powerful tool, one of the best, if not the best, IDE in the world. And we can use multiple emulators. We can run several tests simultaneously, get these results, compare them. We have the profiler, we have the ability to analyze APKs, device storage, and everything. So everything together. And this is great because unlike the other IDs or the frameworks that we provide, so the community provides, everything together is very rare. So this is where the Espresso plus Android Studio shines. And of course, the scaling. Because the Espresso tests are fast and much stable than any other, it is great if we can scale it and have much more confidence. For example, as a device firm, also as in the cloud machines to run it. Even you can run some of the automated tests on a headless emulator, because if you need to check some kind of intents or yeah, mostly intents, and you don't need the UI, you can check it on the headless emulator. So, but it's a bit advanced stuff. So how Espresso works? Espresso handles low-level tasks, and we have three major components, elements, which is in core of the Espresso. The first one is the view matcher, and the sole purpose of this view matcher is to find the required element on the screen. It's, as the name suggests, of course, with specified parameters. We will talk about the parameters a little bit later, and of course, the executor part, such as view action, it's called view action, and it is responsible for the click, for long click, scroll, and all the other actions of the actions, and to check something. So we have the matcher to find the view. We have the action to click it or do any other view action, and then the last option is to check it, just assert it. What we have, is it the same text we already had in the input? Is it the successful for us? Is this some kind of action or not? So those are three major components for us: view matcher, view action, and view assertion. So let's dive into those functions. So this is, I believe, you can see in very well in the details. Okay, let's zoom in a little bit. So this is the exactly same part from the previous picture, from this, and to compare. So how we can use the Espresso. On the left-hand side, we have how we can use it with the view. We just type the on view, some kind of UI matcher is those view matchers could be view ID with text, with tag key, with tag value, if it has lint, with hint, and yeah, those are properties. So also we have the object matchers, some kind of UI properties, and you can change them as well. So you are not restricted only with the one option. So some kind of view matcher. Then we have to perform some action. And on the right hand side with the blue rectangle, we have the click, double click, long click, press back, press IME action button, press key. So IME action button is actually on the keyboard to jump to the next, maybe for to the next input, to close the keyboard, to submit the form. It depends, but whatever is your action button, and also to open link, close the soft keyboard, and tons of the features. So now we have the action part. And now we have to check our assertion. And for the assertion part, we have the matcher, and we can write any kind of matches there. Also, keep in mind that for Espresso, everything is extendable. You can write your custom matchers, and yeah, it's just up to your imagination how you can set up those tests. And okay, um, those are the main part of the Espresso. And on the right hand side, we have the data part. So what is data? Data is mostly for the data. uh, it is intended for the intents, to test the intents, and the main data we have between the activities and that flows inside our application. And for the data, we have the options like in adapter view at position to check where it is in the recycle view, and so on. Here we have also with the intent matchers, we have very interesting functions such as respond with activity result, and if it has some kind of scheme for deep links, and if it has some kind of specified class name, package name, short class name, so anything you need. This is a very short example for very basic feature, and we will see it in the demo. But beforehand, I wanted to show how simple this syntax is once you get familiar to it. So it just to follow the lines on the snippet. It is on view. We try to find the view with the ID edit text user input, and we perform the text input. We just type text, some kind of text there, and close the soft keyboard. Hence, the perform has two actions. Actually, we type there, and then the close input. And then lately, we check some kind of button with the ID change text button, and we perform the click on the button. So if you can imagine, this scenario here is that you have some kind of input, you type something, you close the keyboard, you clicked on the button, and then you check some kind of text view if it equals that you have entered. So very basic test. And I want to show this right now. Okay. And here I have the entire string. Yep, here it is. So this is what I already showed you. This is Java and the Kotlin test. So both are the same, but it's up to whichever you prefer, because I believe there's still lots of developers who use Java every day, or test automation engineers, but still. Okay, so you can see those examples actually on the GitHub, because it's from the official samples. And okay, we can run this test. Actually, so there are two tests, so we can run. And just wait and see how it works. So yeah, it writes espresso, checks test. Yep. Okay, let me show uh, the tests again. Basic espresso. So the application is like we have the generic text here. Here I have hello Tato, change text and change. And now we have to check if it's equal to that. And then we have the open activity and change text. And it's should be the same. But we have test for both of the cases, for the same activity and for the new activity as well. If we run again, we will see that it still validates um, basic test. Uh, okay, now I want to continue with slides again. Mm. Okay, so how Espresso works. Um, this is that was very basic example how it works and how it executes. So all the Espresso commands are executed in the same process in which the application under the test is running. What does it mean? So our application runs on this some kind of process in a actual Linux process, and the Espresso, as I mentioned, is running in the same process. So it means that they share same event queue, so message queue it called, and this is a very good thing and also a bit problem. The good thing is that everything are in the one message queue, and if you have some kind of actions, they are in the queue, actual queue, and if you if your application behaves in some kind of way, and then you need to test the behavior, you are absolutely sure and guaranteed that those your checks will be after the expected behavior, and you can assert the actual actual state of your application. But the problem is that when you have the asynchronous work in your application, so by default, Espresso can work with async tasks, and it ensures that there are no instance of async tasks currently running the task, and then it will run it will run Espresso test, and it has also support for the idling resource. But the problem is that most of the developers don't use async tasks. They use coroutines, RxJava, and so on. So in that case, you need to provide some kind of signaling to Espresso that hey, I'm not running the long running operation already, and you can check it on, you can start. By default in nature is that if you use coroutines and you click button, you start some kind of networking operation, and then you check the data via Espresso. The Espresso will act in a different way. So it will just click on a button and immediately check the expected result because it doesn't know how to weight your coroutines. So in that way, there are two possible options. So introduce the idling resource, which is not very good option, or swap networking client by introducing some kind of dependency injection and provide the fake networking client which runs on a blocking thread and returns some kind of result. And in that case, Espresso will wait because it will be a blocking call and not the asynchronous. So this is just a picture to show how it works on the main thread. So application starts. So we do some kind of swiping action. It swipes and then we wait. We then click some kind of click via Espresso, and the application reacts on the click. So it's just a simple message queue. Yeah, now we already had the demo, but I want to show you a little bit demo about how custom measures can be done in Espresso. So here we have our custom measures. Here we have the custom measure, which is called hint measures. And of course, it means that it checks by hint property of an edit text, and it accepts some kind of substring or string actually, which is the hint or some kind of matcher. For example, the string matchers, which already the view matcher, which already we mentioned that we can match the hint. Here I want to build the application first and show you how it's done. So this, oops, no, this is different one. Custom matcher here. Uh, Here's our hint. How do you like your coffee? And then test and validate it. Bad choice, but it says that something that ends in coffee. For example, espresso, coffee, and it's a good choice. Now we just want to execute this test and try how the application reacts on our test. And let's see what the test is we have. Let's run and then analyze the source code. Espresso, Earl Grey, bad choice, of course. Random coffee, good choice. That is also good. So the first one is that the method name also suggests that the hint ends with. So we check if the hint ends with the coffee. So here, if we have invalid ending T, and it will fail for the T. And so there we have several options, if when it's correct, when it's incorrect, and so on. So back to the presentation. And here, let's continue with the Espresso scenarios. So one of the best features for Espresso is that we have like scenarios, and those are the activity and fragment. Of course, as the name suggests, the first one is that we can isolate activity and test only this activity. And of course, respectively for the fragment, we'll test a fragment in isolation. Why it is important for us? Because we can save tons of resources on this. Instead of just going with the flow from the authorization screen and so on, if we can mock the user data or user session, and then we can load very specific activity or very specific fragment and actually isolation, and then test what we need from them. What the fragment can do, what the activity can do, what are their responsibilities, and test only those activities or fragments. This is a great tool. Of course, it's not always the first solution to use, and sometimes it's very tricky to use, but still it's a very powerful tool. So I believe I don't have enough time to go into the very details of the fragment scenario for this talk, but you can send me a message on LinkedIn or Twitter, and I'll try to send you examples and give you more details about this topic. Yeah, idling users we already said, and talk about the scaling. So UI tests are the tests which are obviously are long running by default, maybe 90 minutes to 2 hours and more than 2 hours, sometimes in 4 hours. It depends from tests, and it depends on the company, how they write those tests and so on. But by default, those kind of UI tests run on some kind of CI machine. Test automation engineers can run several tests or some kind of smoke test, uh, how it's called, test suite on their device, but full suite can be run on CI. And for the CI, I mean, it can be run on Jenkins with emulator, Bitrise, GitHub Actions. There are plenty of these providers, and you can use the emulator. But also, they can use the Firebase Test Lab, which offers a device farm and actual devices that Google provide, and your application will be tested against those devices. There are plenty of variety and where different form factors and so on. And you can test it. And the second option is the test sharding to parallelize your test on different device. So this is a completely different beast and quite hard to achieve sometimes, but still I will provide links at the end of the slides. There's a very good framework, Flank, and this can help you in terms of the sharding. So what are the common challenges during the testing for the manual QA, for the test automation engineers, for developers, and for everyone? First and foremost is the navigation and plus deep links, because it's very hard to analyze and automate the testing for the application which accepts deep links from outside the application, so from other applications, and it navigates from module to module using the deep links. Those are very hard, and you can use Espresso, of course, but still writing those tests are harder by nature than any other. The analytics, to be ensured that you actually track the analytics, you log the analytics, and how you can do the backups. So those two, the last two, analytics and backups, are beyond the scope of the Espresso, but still they stand as a very hard challenge for the testing. So for the backups, you need ADB, and for the analytics, maybe you still need to ADB to grab the latest data and check if it's being tracked or not, or scan it in the logcat to enable logging and scan it in the logcat. Still, they are hard, and you need to check them if they are being logged, because you can't push the application in production or in the beta testing and then wait for 24 hours to appear it on the Firebase or any tracking tool. Okay, the resources I want to provide, and I will link also the presentation lately, is the Espresso documentation, of course, sharding, how we can set up the emulator for testing, most importantly, the headless emulator, Flank, which will help with the parallelizing the test, and condition voucher. This is a very handy tool to automate the testing write me on Twitter, LinkedIn, and elsewhere you want. That was it. Thanks.